What if you identified a most obvious underutilized asset and then you created a marketplace and you built a business around it and now you employ over 500 professionals? Then you raised $16 million in venture capital and ended up number 13 on the Inc. 5000. If that's you, then your name can only be Liza Rodewald. Welcome, Liza.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks. That was a great intro.
Was it? I just
It
wrote
was
it.
awesome.
Well, it's true. And I do have your name
Yes,
correct. Do I have your name correct?
you do. You're spot
Okay.
on.
Liza Rodewald. All right. Well,
hmm
research complete. Welcome to the Homefront.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Liza, you are the co-founder of
hmm
InstaTeams, a company that we work with here at Homefront Brands. And as I
hmm
dug into the story, I was just so impressed with your background, your journey, and then really because we are focused on supporting military veterans. This supports military spouses. So I'm very excited to have you on today. And I want to hear all about your journey building InstaTeams.
All right. Yes. Well, we are a proud partner of Homefront Brands. So our teams and our military spouses on the accounts love working with you guys too. So I'm excited to be here and talk all the things about the story and the background and everything that we want to dig into.
Well, let's go backwards before we go forwards.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm Liza Rodewald. I'm CEO and founder of Instant Teams, but also a entrepreneur myself. I have started four different businesses. I read your book, Jeff, and had a lot of similarities and stories of creating different companies and spawning different ideas and leading you to the next journey that you have. I live in North Carolina. My husband is still active duty, so we're still living the military lifestyle, although we've been able to stay in North Carolina for the last 3 years and hopefully until he's now on the retirement edge of the military. He serves in the U.S. Army, and I have four children of various ages, but still in elementary all the way up to college.
Wow. And you're an engineer by trade.
I am. I'm a software engineer by trade, have a degree in computer science, and started my career in tech in the very, very early days of remote work and when it was called telecommuting back then, when it wasn't as fancy of terms that we have today.
I found an article that summed it up and said that InstaTeams is the intersection of talent and technology. So your background in software engineering, computer
hmm
science, and then you identified this niche of military spouses. How do those two things interplay to make InstaTeams such a success?
Sure. So really my background in software engineering was always met with how do I solve problems for people? That's the part I loved about creating software, creating technology, right? Technology is really powerful and being able to create solutions to people's problems. And I really loved that. And so I had my own software company when I became a military spouse. And that's how those worlds kind of collided. So I was working completely remotely. I was building software for the Secretary of State's offices. And then I met my husband, we got married, and I became part of the military community. And then every single spouse I would meet would just ask me, hey, how are you working, creating a career, having a business in this lifestyle where we move every 2 to 3 years? And really, that's kind of when my brain turned on for like, okay, there are companies that would love to have access to this type of talent. There's this type of talent who have no idea how to connect with companies that have these remote opportunities that they can keep. So from a people and a technology perspective, what can I create to bring these solution problems together and really solve the problem on both sides, right? Business and community side.
Military spouses move, as you said, on an average of every 2.5 years. There's
hmm
a massive underemployment or unemployment rate among these spouses, 5 times the national average.
Yes.
85% of these spouses, though, have some college education, which is 4 times the national average. 28% of
hmm
military spouses have owned or operated their own business, and 75% are confident in their ability to multitask. So you've got a diamond in the rough. You've got these
hmm
people, but they can't, it's hard for them to get employment because they're going to be moving.
hmm
They have other obligations. So working from home in a remote environment suits
hmm
them very well. So super talented, very motivated people, but the opportunity was just not nobody had put together the right opportunity for these folks.
Yeah, I think in my own personal life, I moved 6 times in 7 years when I became a military spouse.
Okay.
So if you're thinking of trying to walk in corporate America and me get a job at software engineering for a company, even here in Raleigh, I would only be here less than a year, right? And on that trajectory. And so it's not enough time to get your foot in the door, go through the process, and really be able to build a career. So these spouses are finding themselves starting over and over and over and over again. And so, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to just say that the opportunity is, like you said, the talent is vast, the experience is vast, the ability to connect to other people, other organizations, other global cultures is strong in the community because of the frequent moves. And so what we did was we went after it as, how do I solve a problem in the business space that results in creating opportunities for this community, versus how do I take this community and go to the corporate space and match them to job opportunities. And so that's how we're different in our approach and how we came up with it.
3 million active military people, 600,000 spouses. How many people do you employ today?
We have over 500, but that's who Instant Teams employs. But we also have a job board for companies to post and hire directly from our community too. So we've put thousands and thousands of military spouses in jobs since we started.
That's incredible. Talk a little bit about the roles. Typically, this is a staffing business, essentially, and they usually have a focus, technology,
Yes.
labor, machine. What are some of the categories that you're most successful in placing people?
Yeah, so that was one of the things we started off to find, right? Where's our fit? Where's our niche in the market that makes sense for us to build from? And what we found is, because we have US citizens located across the globe in every time zone, well-spoken, able to connect with people really quickly. The CX space, the customer experience space, was a gold mine for us on both the brand side, for the brands we work with, and the military spouses. They love being connected, feeling a part of something, being mission oriented. And so most of our roles go through the customer experience. So anything that's outward facing that touches a brand's customers, it could be in sales, could be in customer success, could be very high level roles all the way down to entry level roles. So we have everything in between there, but we really concentrate on building those teams so that we can make the experience of the brand even better and stronger. And these military spouses love being able to connect with other people.
Any specialties like bookkeeping, accounting, programming, things like that? Or is it mostly jobs that companies are going to be able to train a capable person to do, like CX?
Yeah, so both. We try to stay away from anything deeply technical because that's a hard entry from a remote perspective.
Okay.
Even though software engineering is obviously my love and one of my favorite things, getting into that as a remote engineer can be kind of tough. So we focus more on sales, any kind of back end office support that you might need. We don't do a lot of on the financial side, but we do a lot in the insurance space. So we're claim support, AEP enrollments for companies, anything where you need somebody that has a higher level of touch experience, that can care for your customers and your clients coming in. We do data breach detection for cybersecurity companies. So any of those kind of higher level roles that you're thinking about in the organization, those are the types of things that we partner really well with companies on.
And from a training and onboarding perspective, does the burden of that fall on the host company, or do you do some skills development?
Yeah, so we do have our own skills development systems within Instant Teams. So we have partnerships with Google and other things for some hard skills that we send our community through. But we also like to really come at it as a strategic partnership. And so we work with the brands that we work with. They might have the training program already that they want to send everybody through, and we partner with them, and then we help them improve it, right? Like, here are some gaps, or here are some things, improvements that we've heard. So we do that feedback loop back and forth. So it becomes more of a training partnership. We can train the trainer and we can run all the training cycles, Or if the company or the brand wants to hold the training, then we send our spouses through. So we're really flexible in how we do that, but we really approach it from that partnership angle so that we're getting the best product between both of us.
What can you share about success rates, maybe turnover? How long is an average engagement with one of your people into a company?
Sure. So our attrition rate is really low, which is one of the things that really sets us apart in the business space. So typical turnover for this is 30-40%. Our average last year was 8%, 8.5%, which is extremely low.
What do you attribute that to?
A couple of things. One, the dedication of military spouses to the job once they get them. The last thing they want to do when they move is start over again in a job. And so once they have one they believe in, they have a mission-centric company they're working for, they want to stay, they want to grow, and then they want to help other military spouses get those same opportunities. And so that attrition rate is really low for us because they're just mission-oriented and dedicated to the work that they're doing. They don't want to start over.
So our military is deployed globally. Mm-hmm. What does your workforce look like when you in terms of international, where people live?
Yeah, so most of our workforce is in the U.S. We do have some in what the military terms as OCONUS. So that means, Italy, Germany, Japan, even Hawaii and Alaska are considered OCONUS because they're not right here in the continental U.S. So there are pockets of that. There are some rules and regulations that prevent some spouses from being able to work on the economy in those situations. And so that is something we are championing. It's called a SOFA agreement. And they're very old and antiquated, and they don't they're not used to the remote work world. And so we're working to try to get some of those laws changed so that more spouses overseas can have these opportunities.
Okay, so the purpose would be, yes, we'll let you put a military base here. Yes, we'll let you bring spouses and families, but we don't want these people to take local jobs.
Right. And there's no differentiation between remote working there for a company you were maybe working for here while you were in North Carolina. That's not taking away from someone's local opportunity there, but the laws aren't written in that way.
Yeah, I have a solution for that. Close your blinds. Right?
Yeah. The taxation can be a little daunting, and some of the military spouses face losing their benefits on base if they are in violation of this agreement. So there's some scarcity around it too.
Yeah. Well, certainly, it's always better to follow the rules when you can. Yeah. I'd love to hear a little bit about your technology and maybe some of the things at a high level that you've done to really accelerate the growth of this. We're going to get into fundraising. You've raised, I think, a Series A and a Series B. I think you've raised over $16 million. You might have raised more by now. I'm not sure where that is, but people need to see promise. They need to see systems when they're going to invest that kind of money in a business. So from a technology perspective, when you started the business, what did you set out to do? Yeah.
So when the technology has ebbed and flowed throughout the years, obviously, when you start a startup, it never starts exactly the way it ends, right, from a technology perspective. But we knew we had a challenge so I'll get into a little bit of HR space here. There are applicant tracking systems called ATSs, right? This is where when you're applying to a job, you feed your resume in, and then it kind of does that first round of, is this a good fit for us? And then moves you to a person who actually sees it. Well, the challenge with our community is if you've moved 6 times in 7 years and you've remained employed, what does this ATS think when you go through it? Job hopper, inconsistent.
That's right.
The military spouses are automatically kicked out from the very beginning.
Yeah. So they never get a look. They never get a look.
Yeah. They never get a look.
I candidly, when I'm looking through resumes, I do the same thing.
Right. Yeah. It's natural, right? Because it's kind of one of those just normal criteria. But for this community, it's a special case. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we started off from a technology perspective. Make it a skills-based hiring platform to where the skills come first, not a chronological resume. and then feed it into systems that where the military spouses get put to the top of the list, right? They're not automatically disqualified. Some of that takes some time and education with the partners we work with, but the technology is set up to give them an advantage for their multiple types of experience and their skills to really be the forefront of the hiring process versus that traditional chronological resume reading.
Obvious. Painfully obvious.
Yeah. To those in the community, right? But if you're not thinking about that or you haven't experienced it or lived it, it's one of those things that's easily looked over.
Got it. Take us back to the beginning. You had a partnership with Erica McMahon's. How did you guys meet?
Mm-hmm. So we actually met in an online fitness group when we were both in Virginia at the same time,
Okay.
in the military career. And then we realized we lived in the same neighborhood. And so there was like a 4-month period there where I was running my software business and she was consulting with some Silicon Valley startups for user acquisition in the military space. And her and I just kind of swapped notes. We were both passionate about helping military spouses in their careers, just loosely at the time. And so our paths crossed there, but it was about 2 years later that we reconnected, reached out with this idea to get it started, to actually do something a little bit bigger about it.
Yeah. What year was that?
2016.
What was the first year like?
The first year was like any startup idea, was like, okay, how do we actually solve this problem? And let's do some market research. So the very first thing we did was put up a landing page to the military spouse community and ask them, we know unemployment's an issue. It's been talked about for years, for decades at this point. So we already knew that, but it's like, okay, what solutions can we bring to you? What are the things that you're interested to? And would you be willing to sign up? And they came in thousands.
Oh my gosh.
In the first couple of months. And so we're like, okay, obviously there's a need here. We see it, we have data. And then we went to California, actually, Silicon Valley, and we met with 3 or 4 people and we bounced our idea off what we wanted to do. And we started refining from that very first data set we had.
How did you come up with the idea? I mean, whose idea was this? Who connected the dots?
So Erica reached out to me. I was actually about to launch another business. All of my businesses had been solo up till this point. So
Okay.
Solo entrepreneur. I had another one that was about ready to go. I love creating businesses and opportunities. She reached out to me and she was like, I have this idea. I had actually bought the Instant Teams domain about 15 years ago because when I was running my own tech teams, I had a hard time like spinning them up in these different areas for the consulting contracts that I was on.
Right. And
I was like, there wasn't a good software solution for it. And so I'd had that idea and I'd put it kind of on the back burner and I had the URL and she came to me and she pitched a similar idea about spinning up spouses in these cohorts for this military acquisition like she'd done in Silicon Valley. And so we kind of talked through it and we're like, maybe these are the same thing. Let's put these 2 things together and just see where we land. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that technology piece with that community building piece, mm-hmm. those 2 ideas kind of came from 2 different places, but together became what Instant Teams is now.
What experience can you share with first-time business owners and entrepreneurs about what's important in that scrum phase, that first year phase, when you're really trying to formulate your idea? You've already really dropped one bomb here, which is don't spend a lot of money until you test your idea a little bit. Mm-hmm. If you remember Tim Ferriss, the 4-hour work week, he spent, I think, $100. He thought the other title he had for that book he liked better, but he did a Facebook campaign and it was like overwhelming 90+% were clicking on the 4-hour mm-hmm. work week. Well, I guess that's the title. It was his alternate. So right. you did a similar thing, mm-hmm. which is very, very smart. I mean, some people have an idea and then they go out and start building stuff before they really test it and try to get it over the target. Other than that, which you've already shared, what other things, mm-hmm. What other experiences can you share with people that are in that first year and they've got an idea and they're trying to get it to the marketplace?
Yeah, I think from my experience, having a co-founder changed the trajectory of what we did infinitely. So going at it by yourself is great. I've done that before. I've done it 4 other times, right? But when you have somebody who really complements your skills early on, that is the right co-founder, right? Because these also go very awry very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But when you find the right person, you can accelerate what you're doing in ways that you can't even imagine. Just for that example, like the Tim Ferriss idea of following a formula, building cheap, testing your MVP. When you have two people doing it together, that goes so much faster, and that feedback loop can just be phenomenal. And so what we did was kind of divide up. I went to the business side and I said, all right, I'm going to work with the customers and I'm going to figure out what the problem is we're solving here. You double down on the community side and you figure out, you make the relationships on the military side, on the military spouse side, and we'll put these two things together and see where they start to intersect. And so that's kind of how we still do that to this day.
Mm-hmm.
I still lead the business side. She still leads the community side because it's kind of our natural inclinations from just our personalities and what we are naturally drawn to. But having a co-founder, I always recommend it. If you can get the right one, it is game changing. And I would not have been able to scale the business like we have to the size that we have and so fast if I was trying to do this by myself.
You knew each other for 2 years before you started the business?
Yes, but we knew of each other. We weren't
Okay.
friends, which is kind of one of those people just assume, oh, you guys must have been best friends, and then you started this company together. We weren't actually. We knew each other for a 4 month period, and then we both were moved through the Army, and then we just reconnected online. I mean, now I will consider her one of my best friends forever, right? But we started because we had these ideas, we had complementary skill sets, and we decided to build something to really make an impact together.
It's very rare. I had a business that I built in college. It was an auto salon, car detailing place. I upfitted a building. I basically did a small staff acquisition of a local guy that was detailing cars. He had a good reputation, and moved into that. And at the end of the day, the guy was a cocaine addict, and he took which was $100,000 car. And this was back in, 1990 something, 1992.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was probably a $300,000 car now. And
Yeah.
he took it to a neighboring town to buy drugs, and he got pulled out of it, and that whole thing. And at that moment in my 22 years old, I said, I'm never going to go into business with somebody else again that I haven't had daily interaction with for 1 year
Yeah.
until I know
Yeah.
who they are. So the fact that
Yeah.
you guys had a peripheral relationship, then you were apart, and then you came back together, and the fact that this worked out as well as it has. However, you're in the talent and you're in the skills business. So if you were probably objective and you said, well, I'm a professional, successful in this area. This is part of the business. She is professional and successful in this area. So if we can just not kill each other, this should go well.
Yes. Our skill sets were complementary, but also one thing, Erica's emotional intelligence is off the charts. And so our ability to have really hard conversations. When we started the company, she was actually the CEO.
Okay.
And I was the CTO because of the technology. But as we moved into it, we realized our skill sets, like even though I know the technology, my skill is the vision, the big picture, where the company's going. Her skill set is the execution, right? So then we swapped. I became the CEO and she became the COO. And that's when we really started scaling.
Did you come to that collectively, or did one of you raise the issue?
No, we actually got sort of conned into this one of these assessment things that this person invited us to, but we thought it was free. And anyway, it ended up being a sales pitch at the end. But we both took this assessment, and it was like the stars were there. Like, woo, Liza's supposed to be the CEO. Erica is the operator. Like, it was very plain as day as we went through it. I think she even came and said, we need a swap. We're in the wrong position to get the company where we want it to go. And that takes a lot for somebody to be able to do that.
Yeah. And I'm a big fan of assessments. We use
Yes.
Culture Index, but there's others out there. And I mean, it's like cheating. It's like it's
Yeah.
if you know where somebody's goat's tied, then you can go get it anytime you want to. And
Yeah.
I mean, I've got family members in the business, and they're a certain, why, why are they this way? Why can't they all just be like me? And as
Hmm.
well, because they're not wired that way, and they're never going to
Right.
be. So regardless,
No.
I mean, you can have 3 kids, so you can have 4 kids, and they are all, and you can feed them the same. You can bring them
Yep.
up in the same house. You can all go to the same stuff, the same activities, the same parenting, but everybody's going to have dispositions,
Yep.
characteristics, traits that are unique to them, and
Hmm.
they could be vastly different than their sibling. And and I mean, much less a bunch of disparate people put together in a business. So I think assessments are like turning the lights on. You're groping around in the dark, hoping you got it right. But if you use the right
Hmm.
assessments and you actually learn how to use those within an organization, like they don't do any good
Hmm.
if you take it and you keep it to yourself, because
Right.
now nobody knows that you're not a detail person, you're very high, and that you probably didn't go deep enough on this. So you just made a recommendation, but if somebody else didn't do the details, it's a guess because
Yes.
you feel it's right.
Yeah.
So do you guys,
That's right.
as a follow up to that assessment, do you two do anything on a regular basis to make sure your relationship is healthy, or what's your cadence of management check-ins, or do you do offsites or trips? What do you do?
We do all of those things. We built the company completely remotely. So
Mm-hmm.
we've never lived in the same area since we started it in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So keeping that strong has always been really important to us. We, of course, have management check ins. We've been doing founder offsites. We do those once a year where we do our planning. We travel a lot for conferences together. So we make sure we carve out time to do that. And then we bring our leadership team on site here in North Carolina every single quarter. So we definitely intentionally carve out time, try to have fun sometimes because, most of the time it's like business, business, business. And so we try to get together and do something that is not business related, although it's very hard when you're entrepreneurially wired. It always comes back to that, but we do try to spend some time doing some other things too.
Why is there so much debate around remote work, work from home?
It's been interesting. It's even a hotter topic now.
It is.
Um, I think it's because it has to be intentional, right? It has to be the right roles in an organization, and the culture has to be extremely intentional when you're doing remote work. And you have to put in a lot of work to that. And some organizations just aren't built to do that. And when you have hybrid teams, that can cause a lot of tension. That can make things a little harder. And so you have to work even harder. So I think most of that is if I see you and on a daily basis, I know that you're working. If you're off somewhere else working from home or remotely, maybe I don't have as much insights. And so instead of intentionally building systems to empower that, some of the knee jerk reaction is just bring everybody back so I can get eyes on everybody and then reassess kind of who's doing what and how it's working. So it does have to be intentional. It's something we have built and worked on for years, pre-pandemic, before anybody else was doing this at a massive scale, to make sure that we are optimized in every single way from the remote work perspective. And, you know, it is nice to have people in person. And so we do intentionally have our on sites where we bring everyone together because I do think face to face is also important and valuable. So it's not one or the other, it's how do we make it work together?
Where the current trends, many
Mm-hmm.
companies are saying that everybody comes back into the office.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think this is going, and where do you think the compromise may land?
Yeah. Well, it's been happening for probably what, two years now,
Sure.
where Amazon took the lead and some other big companies, because they have all this real estate
Yeah.
that they have paid for.
Yeah. That's one thing for sure.
That's one thing. So it's a cost, and getting rid of it now isn't the best because there's not a lot of companies building up infrastructure like that anymore. And so I think that's driving part of it is they have the space, they want to be able to utilize it. I think as they do the call back to office, it is hurting women in the workforce,
Mm.
which is one of my huge proponents in life. and has been. I am a big advocate for working women, for us to be able to find the balance between having the career, having the family. You can do all of those things. But when you have to go into an office, that just makes the challenge even harder for dual income families.
Right.
And the fact is, you need a dual income family to survive in the economy that we have. And so by putting those restrictions, you're not going to get the best of the workforce in your company.
There's 95 million dogs in the United States. There's about 80 million kids. Pets have exploded, and a lot of people bought dogs during COVID because they're like, I'm going to be home. When's ever a better time to train a puppy? And, as an employer, you think about, what happens is when you find a performance issue and you find out that people have been taking advantage and maybe they've been using a mouse mover, or, they show up and meet, it's just, you hear like everybody thinks they're in the Office television show, right? And everything's funny and they're doing all this stuff and, none of it's productive. But like the reality of it is you probably just have the wrong person. You have the wrong, you haven't created autonomy with clear goals and clear outcomes that people are responsible for. You haven't invested in the technology to make sure that people can be productive and deliver on those things. And so as a default, the easy thing is just say, well, I mean, we're in a 22,000 square foot office here. And it's office warehouse. And we have very, very talented people. Our business is national. So, I mean, we're a franchise business. So by default of that, all of our business is in other places because the franchise owners go forth. And I don't know how many, we have 700 territories operating now, 700 unique geographies that are operated by 230 franchise owners or whatever it is. And so, and as we have a sales organization. Well, if you want the right talented salespeople that are in a specialty like franchise sales, franchise development, you get them wherever they are, and they're in a teams environment and everybody's doing what they need to do. And the deals are converting at a certain percentage. There's a time-based element to getting back to people. And, you can see everything in the numbers. So why would you have this incredibly talented salesperson that lives in Boise, Idaho, but they're an industry leader in what they do, and say, well, I can't work with you because you've got to move to North Carolina, and it's just not going to happen. So conversely to that, what I'll say is young people. I mean, I learned sitting at the corner of a desk of some very, very smart executives, and the ability to walk down the hall and to overhear, to view their mannerisms as they were managing, to learn negotiation from them, with the interpersonal skills and the body language and the tonality of it. You lose a lot of that over Zoom. So if I was a young person, it would be very important for me not to be sitting in my second bedroom. It would be very important for me to get around people to learn what I needed to learn. So I don't know where the balance is. And by the way, if you say, we're remote, so you're 24, 25 years old, you got out of college, maybe this is your second job, sit in your bedroom. It's like, are they really going to they were going to have to be really internally motivated, intrinsically motivated to learn, to grow, to get, we're tribal, we're people. So if I'm established in my career and the value that I deliver is very specific based on my knowledge base, my contacts, the way that I deliver what I do. And I've got a family and, I've been in the office for 25 years and I don't need to be in anymore and still create all of the value, the sales and everything, then, that's great for me. So I don't know. Do you want to create the opportunity? Do you what's really best for everybody?
Yeah. Well, I think that's the caveat. There is not a one size fits all for every demographic, age, role, all of that has to be taken in consideration, right? And I don't think a blanket we're all remote all the time, or we're never going to be remote statements are really helpful in organizations. I think it's a case by case, it's a role by role. Some people love coming in the office.
Yeah.
They get fuel from that. I'm sitting in my office right now. I'm a fully remote company, but I put an office here in North Carolina for the same reason. I have 4 or 5 other people sitting right next to me
Okay.
that work for Instant Teams that come in.
Okay.
Right? I pull them in to the office. So again, we say we're remote first, but not remote only.
Got it.
Right? And so we enable connections across the globe for our team members to connect with each other, meet up for coffees, have virtual and in-person events across the globe that we do for the community, for Instant Teams employees.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's finding kind of that balance, because the military spouse community needs the remote work so they keep their job. There's some locations they can come into if they're there a little bit longer, right? But not all jobs. That's why we don't do technology, because software engineers, to your point, a junior engineer needs to sit by a senior engineer.
Yes. Yes.
They just have to. And if it's really hard to replicate that in a remote environment, not impossible, but it has to have so much intention behind it that companies aren't going to spend the money to do that. So that's why we don't do remote engineering. Although I'd love to, but that entry level part is hard, to your point. Young professionals needing the guidance, getting the things that they just grab by being in the same room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as you look at this future, you're mostly domestic United States, but you've got people outside.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do you see for Instant Teams in terms of the next 2 to 3 years from a growth perspective or a market perspective? Is there anything that you're worried about? Some headwinds, or do you think it's all tailwinds? Companies are growing. AI is fueling a lot of agility inside of companies with respect to technology.
Mm-hmm.
That means that there's a lot of people that are going to have to adapt, better said, to new tools. What they did before, moving this from here to there, is now done by a tool. So it creates all of this churn and all of this swirl inside of everybody's business right now. So how does Instant Teams plan to take advantage of that and grow again?
Yeah, I am actually very excited about the adoption of AI. Personally. Our position at Instant Teams, our teams kind of sit on top of those layers, right? We don't do very, very entry level call routing and things like that a lot of these other bigger BPOs do that are going to get hit by the AI integration.
Yes.
But because we sit on top of that layer and we are the problem solvers, the escalation points, the people who can be trained in AI. So we have a partnership with Grow with Google, training our individuals in AI, right? So they can sit on top of that layer. And so to me, that's a tailwind for us because we are US based resources. Hopefully there's some more tailwinds and using US brands and US products coming our way in the next few years. And so if that is happening, that's a tailwind for us as well. But the technology shift is a great place for us because those entry level jobs are going to be replaced by people that need to be able to understand, implement, and operate the AI, which is our layer. And so I'm very excited about being able to see that be adopted a little bit more. Right now, it's in CX space. A lot of the retailers have really grabbed onto that quickly. The more traditional areas, kind of where we operate in financial services and insurance, they're a little bit slower to adopt.
Right.
But in the next few years, you're going to see that start to catch up.
Yeah, that probably has to do with margins. People that have larger margins feel less urgent in changing the way they do things.
Yeah, but eventually it comes together.
Yeah, 100%. You've used the term BPO a couple of times. Can you share with the audience exactly what a BPO is and maybe how it's different than a traditional staffing organization?
Sure. BPO is business process outsourcing. That's what it stands for. And so that's when you outsource an entire function to an organization versus you ask for 4 or 5 staff members that plug into your operations as a company. BPO is done in a lot of different ways, but the way Instant Teams does it is boutique. So we're considered a boutique BPO in that our resources will plug straight into your technology and your systems versus you being forced to use ours. And so that makes us more of an integrated partner, which can kind of blur the line a little bit, staffing and BPO, but gives us an advantage to really work with our customers in really deep, detailed ways. That if we used our own call routing software and our own metric tracking system, you wouldn't have as much visibility into. And so our goal is to have our military spouses plugged into your organization as tightly as can be, but still with all the benefits of outsourcing. So they're not on your payroll. We're taking care of all of that, hiring and putting them on the teams for you, but we're working as partners there in that technology piece together.
Got it. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
You started the company in 2016. When did it become apparent that you were going to need to raise money?
About a year in, once we started testing all the waters, we actually had named it something different to start with. About a year in, we like, okay, this is getting traction. There's the need here. We're finding the product market fit. That's when we decided to turn it into Instant Teams, to put the technology behind it. So it was all hand done processes, systems up until that point. Just landing pages and shiny objects that I was able to create. And so at that point, we knew we had something and we knew we wanted to scale it. I knew that I wanted to make this bigger than any other business that I'd done so far. And to do that, I was going to have to raise money. And so we changed the name to Instant Teams at that point. I went through the Founder Institute program specifically to build a network in the investment side. And that's when we started the journey of really scaling the company. That's also when we switched roles. All that kind of happened at once, about a year in.
I want to double click on that for people that are starting to build a business. They go out and they think they have a business that they want to build. So they start immediately working on the technology. But the right way to do it is people first, process second, and technology third. And, you know, because if not, so ultimately what happens, and I know this because I've done this like 8,000 times, is you start working on making a process efficient that doesn't need to exist in the first place. So unless, you know, when you can do a lot with spreadsheets and with paper and with people, and then you go out and run your business a little bit. And yeah, it's going to take a little bit longer because you're on spreadsheets and you're on process maps and that you're doing in some little software or whatever. But that's where you optimize the business. That's, you know, you're not searching for efficiency from day one. You're looking for effectiveness. Like what works? Yep. Why does it work? Why do these people use this? What's going to be getting in our way? So after you go out and you deploy the business for a year or 18 months, and now it's like, okay, this is working. We've been doing it the same way. We've got a game plan. We got a playbook, whatever you want to call it. We understand who our customer is now. We understand how to articulate the problems that we solve. We understand how to implement. We understand how to do all this stuff. And it's killing us. It's absolutely crushing us. That's when you take your requirements of the business that you have just built and you say, okay, now you do exhaustive requirements, and then you go out and you build the technology, which is oftentimes small businesses stay small if they can't find a way to do that because that is their impediment to scale. And so you knew because of your background in computer science engineering that, okay, I know how to do this. I see what it needs. I can write the requirements. And it's going to cost. So that's where, so once you got to that point, tell us how you went about, what is the Founders Institute, by the way?
So the Founder Institute is a national program that helps entrepreneurs that want to build VC-backed scalable companies. So they're very focused in technology, right? So if you're wanting to scale a large organization, you want to raise money, you go through their programs, and they help build a network. So I went through the program in DC. I drove up there every day for 3 months from Fort Lee, Virginia, where we were stationed at the time, to basically start building the network. I already had the business, so it kind of helps you kind of build business at the beginning. And then it has a second phase where they help you raise money if you're at the top of the
Yeah.
classes,
So
right? You get invited to like
so
the
is this
second
like an
phase.
incubator where they give you office space and they have executives roaming around and you can ask them questions and they have a coffee bar?
It's not, no, it's not quite as formal as
Okay.
that. The Founder Institute is more of a looser program, and they do have a warrant in the company, how they make their money in the end from the exited individuals. But it's more of a network of support. There's a short program, but they really just teach you how to speak investor,
Okay.
right? And from my perspective, I wasn't around any investors. I couldn't do a friends and family round because I didn't know anybody that had any money when I started Instant Teams. So I was like, I've got to figure out how to build a
Yeah.
network here. And that's really kind of, we had an advisor who helps run some of their programs. And he was like, Liza, if you go into the program, I can help open that network, but you got to be in the program for me to do that. And so that's kind of how I went. And then interestingly enough, like every military spouse journey, what makes this population so unique and such great employees is I was able to build that kind of a network everywhere I got moved while I was raising money.
So does the
And
Founder
so,
Institute have a network in every city or many cities?
yeah, yeah, many
Okay.
cities and
Okay.
countries. So they're an international
Interesting.
organization. But every single network place that I would move to, it'd be kind of like a new network. So as soon as I decided I was raising money, I got orders to Hawaii.
Mm.
And I was like, how am I going to raise money from Hawaii? Like Hawaii sounds great, but not exactly the mecca of venture capital. So I built a network there with Hawaii Angels and Blue Startups. And I just repeated that same process everywhere I
Got
got
it.
planted. And that's how I've been able to be
There's
successful.
so many groups like that out there. I've gone to several of
Mm-hmm.
these things, and I mean, it's all people with money and experience, and people that have sold businesses, and whether it's Tiger
Mm-hmm.
21 or whatever it. I mean, there was one I went over. I can't even think
Yep.
of them. There's so many, and they're obscure, but like everybody's looking for that next big thing. Everybody wants to
Mm-hmm.
find smart entrepreneurs. They want to get in early, and I tell you,
Mm-hmm.
if you have money to put to work, and wherever these things are happening in your local city, these are great places because sometimes these are companies that can really solve a problem. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
the obviousness of great businesses after they're started is just like, why didn't I think of that?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
of the way that our economy and then our business environment changes, new niches are getting created every day, and it's just you just have
Mm-hmm.
to be able to see it. Oh, because this happened, now this happened. I mean, we have a brand that we're
Right.
launching. I think it's going to be the fastest brand in franchising, and it has to do. We have a proprietary product, and there's a big industry that is the insurance is pulling back their coverage of a certain event. So that's massive, tens of billions of dollars of this type of service that the insurance company is no longer going to pay for, and they're going to make it very difficult to pay for. There's also been some changes in the product where the product doesn't last as long as it used to. So we have I saw it and I was just introduced to it and I saw it and I knew these other data points and I'm like, this is a niche.
Mm-hmm.
This is the most obvious thing in the world. But somebody has to have the courage to like, okay, I'm going to start writing checks and we're going to put this behind the curtain and we're going to put it into a little shop and we're going to build this thing. And hopefully before, then
Mm-hmm.
we're going to launch it and we're going to start running before other people see it. And so have there
Yeah.
been other Instant Teams fast followers and imitators out there?
Yeah. I mean, people have tried to copy what we've done
How's
all
that
along the
feel?
way.
That feel good?
At first it's kind of like, really? Like, because it's usually someone you've had somewhat of some
Yes.
interactions with, and you're like, you kind of personally kind of take it personally at first, but then there's a
Right.
market, right? If you have something that you're creating, somebody else is trying to create it, there's a market for it. So that's a good sign. Competition is good. And then I always say, this journey has been hard. I won't sugarcoat it. Being an entrepreneur is
Mm-hmm.
not easy. You've built multiple companies. You know it takes an amazing amount of grit, effort, time, heart, soul. Everything is poured into it. So most of the time, I'm just like, more power to you. If you can make this happen, you go for it, because it's not easy. And that just means there's more opportunity to create. So it's an interesting experience as a founder to watch. And most of them kind of die off after a while. I don't know any of them that have made it too far in the
I think
process.
that's where I look back to and say, at the end of the day, if we had a good idea and we created a good business that other people want to copy, then I think that's an indicator we're on the right path. But at the end of the day, it's our execution and it's our personal and professional standards that are going to be what wins. So do you think that you're going to build a business that nobody else in the United States is going to actually, if it works, is going to copy? You're going to be copied by startups out of people's garages. You're going to have well-funded private equity people that are going to start a fast follower to you. I mean, if you have a good idea, like, okay, maybe you've got 6 months, maybe you've got a year. People might look and see, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? But like, they're coming for you. So you might as well not even worry about it. You just like put the blinders on. Don't worry. I mean, I think, what is it? The hedgehog concept with good to great, like worry about you. Like you like,
right. You don't have time to
force yourself into planned obsolescence, challenge everything you do, be like Elon Musk and just start stripping things away and see if it breaks it. And like, if you can I mean, that's the great thing. I think Musk in a lot of things, he just leaves everything open source because he's like, if you can do it and you can chase us, God bless you.
Right. That's exactly how I feel.
I mean, let's go. It's on, right? And then what happens is so if, let's just say that some of these people were personally known to you, when they find out it's a little bit harder and a little bit longer and you're better at it, then you're like, okay, well, you've developed some customer base, you've developed a couple of things. I'll just go ahead and buy you. And now, at the end of the day, the ones that win are the ones that just, I mean, if you look at the big tech companies or the FANG today, it's like anything that gets any traction, here's $1 billion, because we're not going to let you get any more traction. We're going to pay you 100 times what it's worth today. And then it's going to take somebody else 3 years to come behind. And that's another strategy, right? So being the leader, you're a lion and you're eating. If you want to be the leader, then you got to be the king of the hill, and you got to be able to eat anything that challenges you for your dominance. Well, it got very aggressive.
Yep. You have to be aggressive if you're going to win in this game. You have to be aggressive.
Well, so you didn't have friends with money, family with money, and you needed to go raise money. Talk about that experience.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's very unique to my experience is, as a military spouse who has 4 children, a traditional fundraising process was not going to be in the cards for me. So traditionally, you go on this like roadshow-ish thing, right? You try to raise money for 4 months. I have 4 kids and a husband who's gone on the hunt.
You could have just brought the kids, dressed them in crappy clothes, had them stand up there behind you. Like, we need this money so bad.
Somehow I don't think that was going to work.
Put dirt on their face.
Not from a position of strength there. So I did it non-traditionally pre-COVID. So I raised every single round of funding that we raised for Instant Teens completely virtual. So even before it was a thing, because I was in Hawaii and I have children, I couldn't go off. So I had to be very strategic about it. I will say I dug into relationships with everything. And one of the things from the very first check that I've ever gotten, I did monthly updates to all my investors until we did Series A. And at that point, I do quarterly notes to every single investor, every single check, no matter if it was $25,000 or $2 million, they still get communication from me and still get that kind of personal touch. And they know I'll take a call with any of them at any time if they want to dive into anything. But I started that very, very early on. And most of my early stage investors would say, you are the only portfolio company that has ever kept communicating with us and
Mm-hmm.
kept us in the loop of things. And so by the time I went to raise the next round, guess who was giving me all the
Right.
warm intros?
Yeah.
All of those people I stayed in contact with. But I can trace my very first check to my Tiger intro, which closed my Series A round. They tie
Nice.
directly together. And that's because there's a power in relationships and to be authentically building them along the journey. And I feel an obligation to our investors because in the beginning, I had an idea, I had a little bit of money, like customers coming in, but they believed in me. And I want to give them a return, right? I feel very obligated to them, but I want to make sure that I am being true to my relationships that I built. And I think that is the single thing besides having the good business
Mm-hmm.
idea, the good business plan, the metrics, all of those things I have. But that relationship building changed the way I think I was able to raise money and enabled me to do that successfully where other people may have struggled by not keeping those communication lines as open and consistent.
There's a team required of special skills when you're raising money. How did you put yours together and who was on it in terms of position wise, not names? You need,
Well, I mean, to be honest, I was the team.
well, but
I
you
was the
need
team.
somebody putting, you need legal, you need finance, you need people understanding, you need to be able to put together a sim, a prospectus. Like, was that from the Founder Institute that you were able to, is that something they do?
Yeah, so they don't put those things together, but they teach you how to have like a data room,
Okay.
the things that you need, for investors to look at as far as how to do performas. I did tons of those in Founder Institute, right? It's my very first experience of putting one
Okay.
together. Free, you can contract that stuff out early
Hmm.
stage. So I did contract out like people that had CFO experience to help me build the performa to make sure it's making sense from that perspective. Any kind of mentor that I could kind of grab for a conversation, it's like valuation. What does this make sense? This is what I'm thinking. Some of those came from Founder Institute. Some of those came from initial conversations at Blue Startups, which was in Hawaii. So just kind of building that network of support. We had very local lawyers to start off with, but now we have like Goodwin Proctor, so one of the big legal firms in the United States. So you kind of grow small, figure it out, and then kind of mature those things as you go through and raise. Like you don't have to start off in that mature state. They don't really expect you
Hmm.
to, investors at the early stage, but they expect you to know how to structure it and they expect you to know how to figure it out.
Right.
Right? That's the main thing. Is this founder that I'm investing in gonna figure it out?
Right.
I don't expect her to know everything, but I need to look at her and say, she's going to run through a brick wall if she needs to figure this problem out. That's the kind of person I'm putting my money in.
100%. Any lessons learned going through the process if you were going to do it again today?
I think the one piece of advice that I got the entire time was to raise more than you
Mm.
need. If I could go back, I would raise less.
Really? And less equity?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the stages,
Yeah.
right? And it's easy to say that after the fact, right? Because it's like, would I have figured out these things without the money? I don't know. But I think I took on a little bit more than I needed at the stages that I was at.
Yeah.
So if I could go back, I would probably do a little less. I think it's as a founder, you hear they call it mentor whiplash. You will get advice from everywhere and it will all be different. And you have to, I think in your book, you have discernment. I mean, you have to, as the founder, discern what the right path is because ultimately you are the one that knows. You can get all the information in, you can collect it in, you need to sit with it and you need to pull all of that data together. But at the end, your gut will tell you where you're supposed to
Hmm.
go and you need to listen to it. You need to listen to it and you need to not lose it through the whole journey because it's easy to start to you built a big company and now these people who have done these big things start to come in and you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't feel right. Anytime I felt that, it's always been wrong. I was always right. Like I should have went with my gut feeling,
100%. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Anytime I defer, that statement right there has probably cost me more money and more wasted time and more latency and than anything else, is just saying, well, I hired this person, they're an expert, I'm going to defer to them. But like your spider sense is just tingling. They don't care as much as you care. And you got to go all the way down and figure out if, and you're going to find out generally that your sense of it was correct. So does a board, does a board sit between you and your investors?
Yes. So we have a formalized board. I just did my board meeting on Friday last week for the year end. So have a great supportive board. I do send out, after the board meetings, I send out investor updates to all the investors, and then they can reach out to me if they want one-on-ones. Some investors do, some don't. They all ask, how can I help? So I always have that in all of my investor updates. Like, here's a way you can help. Here's something I'm looking for, because they enjoy being part of the process too.
Fantastic. You have a set of values, and I'm interested to know, to the extent that these have helped you in difficult times. I like to say values break the ties. Your values create a big fence around what's expected and what's tolerated in an organization. And, being true to those values will help make tough decisions. It'll let people join you or not join you. And again, it breaks the ties and difficult, because sometimes as business owners, it's not clear what the right thing to do is. And you've got these four, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this could be old. I mean, I dug this out, but we take ownership. We team build to build teams, which I really like that one. We embrace change daily, and we lead with intentional curiosity. I'm interested around this, this we team build to build teams. What does that mean?
Yeah. So we actually added that core value probably almost 2 years ago now, as the company started to scale. So Instant Teams, obviously we build teams for our brands that we work with. But what we were kind of seeing is, like, we were so focused on the teams we were building for the brands that we were kind of losing that internal, like, feeling of building our teams within the organization. And so Erica and I sat down and we're like, okay, we need to embody this, because the other thing we do is we give core value awards every month and every quarter to individuals in the company who are demonstrating that particular skill. And they can be nominated, or we can see them operating in it. But really focusing on our relationships with each other internally within the organization. Some people like to call it family. I like to call it our teams that we're building together, making sure that that bond is strong and that we are in sync with each other, so that we can then therefore do that for our customers, is really important. And so we highlight that as one of our core values, and it was added, 7 years in to the process, because I think your values also, you see what you need as a company and you kind of see them evolve, and you say, okay, this is an area that we would like to put a focus on and we'd like to improve. And so we added that one to the list.
If reality matches your vision for the company in 5 years, what types of things are going to be going on at Instant Teams?
Well, obviously I'm a big dreamer. I have big goals. So we want to continue to be the largest employer of military spouses. That's our goal. I would say we're well on our way there, from a optics perspective, and a lot of companies employ military spouses. So it's something that I'm very proud of. So in 5 years, I want to continue to be the leader, but I want to be the leader in a way that is recognized on a global scale.
Awesome. Heading towards the barn. Before we do that, where can people get in touch with you if they're interested in contacting you or engaging your services?
Okay. Me personally, LinkedIn's the best way to get me. Liza Rodewald is my LinkedIn name and handle, so I'm easy to find if you can spell it out. Contact me on LinkedIn. I'm on there. My EA is on there constantly, so I'll get your message if you reach out to me on there. Instant Teams, if you go to instantteams.com, contact us there. You can talk to our sales team. You can talk to individuals. And if you are a military spouse or a veteran that is looking for employment, you can also go to instantteams.com and begin your journey signing up with us on the career seeker side as well.
Awesome. Last question. if you had one sentence to make an impact in somebody's life based upon your journey, what would that be?
One sentence to make an impact. I would say stick to your principles and your values and to never give up. Don't quit.
Perfect. Perfectly said. This has been great. Thank you for being on.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
100%. I am Jeff Dudan, and we have been here with Liza Rodewald with Instant Teams, and we have been on the home front. Thanks for listening.